I thought on so many things when this question was put to me, the idea of appearing here, for which I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Um, of course, I thought about what Dinu Lipatti had meant to me as an American pianist growing up in America. Um, all the ways in which my own artistic work has been inspired by what he did, and how much he still means to me in my work, particularly as a teacher. And in terms of, I'm always a good student. I run to the bookshelf and see what I have. I have my Lipatti scores that I've looked through, and of course, my beloved Lipatti CDs. And but particularly what struck me was how important Dinu Lipatti was in the year 1950 when this book came out. And then 20 years later, another book in 1970, In Memoriam, Dinu Lipatti, that this question that you raised has been raised before and will be raised again, I'm quite sure. Because I feel that there is for Dinu Lipatti something that is almost unique in the annals of piano history, in the annals of pianists, and what they have left us. Of course, Lipatti was a very, very great musician. His recordings are all extolled and celebrated. And I still think his reputation as a composer still needs to be further explored and celebrated. Certainly, we Americans have had a hard time getting a hold of some of his wonderful scores. But I have to start back in my teenage years when I first heard Lipatti, and this was an LP recording that my grandmother gave me on one of my young birthdays of his performances of the Grieg and the Schumann piano concertos, which quickly became one of my favorite LPs that I owned. At that time, I was so young, I couldn't really explain why I loved it so much. Uh, but in just a few years, when I went to college at the age of 17, I went to New York to the Juilliard School, where I had the great fortune to study with Rudolf Firkrishny. And in pursuit of improving my tone at the piano, which my teacher wanted me very much to work on, I remember one afternoon in the apartment I lived in putting on this LP of Lipatti playing Bach and Mozart. And it was as if some ton of bricks had fallen on my head. This was the sound. This was the sound of that music. This was the sound of the piano. It was just the sound. I'm not sure I need to even finish that sentence. It is the sound. And when we hear Lipatti playing the music that he loved the best, his Bach, his Mozart, his Ravel, his Chopin, you hear something that is so luminous and impossible to duplicate. You try and try and try. So for me, if I think of what does Dinu Lipatti mean for me, it is a lighthouse. It is the lighthouse. It is when you are lost at sea or even having a fine day at sea, still you look towards that lighthouse as, oh yes, this is where I'm going. This is the sound that I want. This is the ethic that I want. I think his sound also had an innate and an aching humanity to it. I'm not sure Dinu Lipatti himself even totally understood or appreciated this in his lifetime. I know he seemed to poo-poo people who put him on such a high pedestal. But there is in his sound such a great connectedness to our soul, to our spirit as human beings. And that is something, I mean, honestly, as I said before, you find it in a handful of pianists, not even 10, not even 15. It is just those rare people who are able, like Vermeer, when he put the brush to the canvas, every single stroke was calibrated perfectly and with a great connection to the heart. And when I hear Lipatti's playing, I feel the same thing. So it is a kind of a perfection, but it's a very human and very beautiful perfection that we lesser mortals, I think, take to heart as our role model. So I stress this to my students. I ask them to listen to Lipatti's recordings and to learn from it what they may. It may be no different than the priest or the preacher who exhorts people to read the Bible and learn from it. I mean, some will understand the lessons and many will not. But you do your best. As long as you're going by the good book, you can't really go totally wrong. So many is the time that I've recommended Lipatti to my students. Does it have a place today? You ask about how important it is today. More than ever. I mean, we're dealing with an intensely complicated time in our history, a complete conversion of culture because of technology. And we cannot lose this essential humaneness. We can no more lose Dinu Lipatti than we could lose Shakespeare or Vermeer. This is the kind of exalted culture that we're really speaking of when we speak of the artistry of Dinu Lipatti. I'm not sure I could put it any better than that.